What if ancient civilizations knew the truth about our reality thousands of years before computers ever existed? What if priests in Egypt and philosophers in Greece described simulation theory without calling it by that name? Plato told a story about prisoners chained in a cave. They could only see shadows on the wall. They thought those shadows were the whole of reality. Then one prisoner escaped. He saw the real world outside the cave. He realized everything he had known was just a projection that was written around 375 years before the Common Era. I'll go further back to ancient India. The Hindu scriptures called the Vedas describe the world as Maya. Maya means illusion. They said our physical reality is not the true reality, it is a dream. It is a play of consciousness. It is a simulation created by a higher power. The Egyptians believed the material world was a shadow of the spiritual world. Tibetans created the concept of the bardo, which is a dream-like intermediate state, very similar to a simulated reality. Our ancestors were not primitive. They may have discovered the same truth that modern physicists are now catching up to. Reality is not what it seems. Today we uncover the ancient secrets that prove simulation theory is not new. It is ancient wisdom dressed in modern language. If you're ready to uncover the truth behind our simulated universe, hit like and subscribe to join us on a journey through the mysteries of simulation theory. Let's get started. Simulation theory sounds like a modern idea. It requires computers, code, and digital graphics. But the core concept is ancient. The idea that our world is not base reality appears in nearly every major civilization. In India, the Advaita Vedanta school of Hinduism teaches that Brahman is the only true reality. Everything else, including your body, your thoughts, and the entire physical universe, is Maya. Maya is often translated as illusion, but a better translation is simulation. It is a temporary, constructed reality created by a higher consciousness. In ancient Greece, Plato gave us the allegory of the cave. He said most humans live like prisoners chained in a dark cave. They only see shadows cast on the wall by objects behind them. They mistake the shadows for true reality. The philosopher is like a prisoner who breaks free. He leaves the cave and sees the sun, the real world outside. Plato was describing a simulated reality. The shadows are our physical world. The objects casting the shadows are the higher dimensional forms. The sun is the source code, or the programmer. In China, the Taoist philosopher Zhuangzi wrote about dreaming he was a butterfly. He woke up not knowing if he was a man who dreamed of being a butterfly or a butterfly dreaming of being a man. That is a perfect description of a simulated consciousness. In Egypt, the Book of the Dead describes the material world as a copy of a higher spiritual realm. The pyramids themselves were designed as simulation machines to help the pharaoh transition between realities. Why is this relevant now? Because modern science is finally catching up to what the ancients already knew. Quantum physics shows that matter is not solid, it is probability waves. Neuroscience shows that your brain constructs a model of reality, not reality itself. We are arriving at the same destination the ancients reached thousands of years ago. In the next section, we will explore the specific ancient texts that sound exactly like modern simulation papers. Here is the real challenge that makes this topic so mind-blowing. How did ancient people without telescopes, microscopes, or computers arrive at the same conclusions as modern physicists? The answer is that they used different tools. They used meditation, introspection, logic, and philosophy, and they may have had access to knowledge from previous advanced civilizations. Take the Hindu text called the Yoga Vasistha. It was written somewhere between the 4th and 14th century, but it contains passages that sound like they came from a 21st century physics journal. One passage says the world is like a painting painted on water. It appears real, but vanishes the moment you touch it. Another passage says the universe is a projection of consciousness, like a dream within a dream. That is exactly the simulation hypothesis. Now consider the Buddhist concept of sunyata, or emptiness. Buddhism teaches that all phenomena are empty of inherent existence. They only exist in relation to each other. That is a perfect description of digital information. A pixel on your screen has no inherent color. Its color depends on the data stored in memory. Change the data and the pixel changes. Pixel is empty of its own nature. It is purely informational. Then there is the Hermetic tradition from ancient Egypt. The emerald tablet attributed to Hermes Trismegistus says, as above, so below. This means the macrocosm and microcosm mirror each other. In simulation theory, this is the concept of nested simulations. Simulation inside a simulation inside a simulation. The problem is that modern academia ignores these ancient ideas because they come from religion, not science, but that is a mistake. The ancients were asking the same questions we ask. What is reality? Is it real or is it a construct? How can we tell? The challenge is to bridge this gap between ancient wisdom and modern science. To treat the Vedas and Plato not as mythology, but as data. When we do that, a shocking picture emerges. Ancient cultures did not just stumble upon simulation theory, they built entire civilizations around it. Their temples were simulation devices, their rituals were code, their gods were programmers. We will explore that in the next section. Let me take you on a journey back in time. Imagine you are standing in ancient India around 500 years before the Common Era. You are a student of the Upanishads. Your teacher tells you that the world is like a web of illusions. He says that Brahman is the only true reality and that your individual self is identical to Brahman. You are the programmer and the program. You are the dreamer and the dream. Now close your eyes and meditate on that. Your teacher asks you to look at a clay pot. He says the pot appears real, but the pot is just clay shaped into a form. The form will eventually break. The clay remains. Similarly, your body is just consciousness shaped into a temporary form. The form is a simulation. The consciousness is the hardware. Now jump forward to ancient Greece. You are a student of Plato. He takes you into a dark cave. He chains you so you can only look at the wall. Behind you, puppeteers cast shadows of animals and objects. You watch these shadows for years. You believe they are real. Then one day someone frees you. You turn around, you see the puppeteers, you see the fire, you walk out of the cave. The sunlight blinds you at first, but then you see trees, mountains, and the sky. You realize that everything you knew was a shadow of a higher reality. That is exactly what it would feel like to escape a simulation. Now imagine you are in ancient Egypt. You stand before the Great Pyramid. It is not just a tomb, it is a simulation engine. The narrow passages, the grand gallery, the king chamber, each part was designed to guide the pharaoh's consciousness through a simulated afterlife. The pyramid texts carved on the walls describe the pharaoh becoming a star, traveling through the sky, and entering the presence of the gods. That is a description of a soul leaving a simulation and entering the parent reality. Ask yourself this: why did so many different cultures, separated by oceans and thousands of years, all arrive at the same conclusion? The answer is not coincidence. The answer is that simulation theory is not a theory. It is a discovery. Ancient people discovered it by looking inward. Modern scientists are discovering it by looking outward through microscopes and telescopes. Same truth, different paths. But here is the cliffhanger. If the ancients knew the truth, then why did they hide it in myths and symbols? And what else did they discover that we have not yet translated? Here is the most powerful evidence that ancient cultures discovered simulation theory. In 2003, a physicist named David Bohm proposed that the universe is a hologram. Every part contains the whole. Hologram is a two-dimensional surface that projects a three-dimensional image. That is exactly how a simulation works. The code is two-dimensional data on a hard drive. The rendered world is three-dimensional. Now here is the shocking part. Ancient Hindu texts describe the universe exactly this way. The Brahma Sutra says that the universe is like a cloth folded into itself. Every point contains the whole fabric. That is a hologram. The Bhagavata Purana describes the universe as a tree whose roots are in the heavens and branches extend downward. It is the holographic principle where the higher dimensional reality contains the lower dimensional projection. But there is more. The Maya calendar is not just a calendar, it is a simulation clock. Mayans believe that the universe goes through cycles of creation and destruction. Each cycle is like a simulation reset. The current cycle started in 3114 before the Common Era and ends in 2012. That date came and went without apocalypse, but the Mayans never said the world would end. They said the simulation would change. The age of the fifth sun would end, and the sixth sun would begin. We are now in that transition. The Hopi tribe of North America had similar prophecies. They spoke of the great purification when the simulation would reveal itself. Then there is the Tibetan Buddhist concept of the bardo. The bardo is the state between death and rebirth. In that state, you realize that your entire life was a dream. You realize that you are not your body, you are consciousness. That is exactly what simulation theory says. When you die, you might wake up in the parent reality. You might see the programmers, you might see the code. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is a manual for navigating that transition. It tells you not to be afraid of the lights and visions. They are just the simulation shutting down. The ancient Egyptians wrote similar instructions in the Book of the Dead. They told the soul how to pass through gates and judgment halls. Those are metaphors for data checkpoints in the simulation. The evidence is not in a rock or a scroll. The evidence is in the consistent message across every ancient culture. Reality is not base. You are not your body. There is a higher world, and you can wake up from this simulation. The ancients knew it. Now, modern science is confirming it. The question is not whether they discovered the simulation. The question is why we forgot. Let us recap what we have uncovered. Ancient civilizations, from India to Greece to Egypt to Mesoamerica, all described reality as an illusion or a shadow or a dream. The Hindus called it Maya, Plato called it the cave, the Buddhists called it emptiness, the Egyptians called it a shadow of the spiritual realm. These were not primitive superstitions, they were sophisticated philosophical models of a simulated reality. Ancients used meditation, introspection, and logic to reach the same conclusions that modern physicists are reaching with quantum mechanics and holography. They described the universe as a projection, a hologram, a simulation. Wrote manuals for escaping the simulation like the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They built temples and pyramids as simulation devices. The Maya calendar tracks simulation cycles. Hopi prophecies describe simulation resets. The consistency across cultures separated by oceans and centuries is not random. It points to a universal truth. Reality is not what it seems. You are not just a body. You are consciousness experiencing a constructed world. The ancients knew this. They lived by this knowledge, and we are only now beginning to remember. The next time you hear simulation theory, remember that it is not new. It is ancient wisdom dressed in modern clothes. The mystery is not whether the simulation exists. The mystery is why we keep forgetting and remembering. That is the cycle. That is the game. And you are playing it right now. Which ancient culture had the most accurate description of simulation theory for you? Is it Plato or the Hindus or the Egyptians? Share your answer in the comments below. Also watch our video on the holographic principle, which shows how modern science is proving what the ancients already knew. If you enjoyed this exploration of simulation theory, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And if you're ready for more interesting content on the simulation theory, make sure to check out our other videos. Thank you for watching.